All right, and so today in this lesson, I am going to show us an introduction to improvising. So first I'm going to show you a chord progression. We'll kind of explain about this chord progression and talk about chord progressions in general. Then we'll talk about the melody, right? How we choose the notes to go over the chords, right? Right, so we'll jump into that. It will be a little more jazz-based, but I do believe that learning this jazz chord progression is one of the best ways to learn how to improvise. So, you can take these skills and then apply it to pop music or anything else that you want to, even classical if you'd like. So anyways, let's jump right into it. So what we're going to do is we're going to play what's called a 2-5-1 progression, and we are going to do this in the key of C major, right? We want to make it easy, right? So it's all white notes. Right, so if you're not familiar with scales or you're not familiar with, what I mean by 2-5-1 progression, I do have videos. You'll see links for those, and you can click on those if you want to watch those first. It may be helpful for understanding the theory, but not necessary to do this video. So anyways, we're going to do a 2-5-1 in the key of C major. So the first chord we're going to start out with is a D minor 7 chord. So that's going to be D, F, A, and C. Right, so all in thirds. D, F, A, C. In hand, as for finger choice, I would choose your fifth finger, your pinky on D, third on F, second on A, one on C, right? So that's gonna be our first chord. Our next chord is gonna be a G7 chord in its second inversion. So a G dominant chord, G7, right? So all we're gonna do from our first chord is we're gonna keep the D, we're gonna keep the F, we're gonna take this A and move it down to a G, and we're gonna take this C and move it down to a B. Then we're going to play those 4 notes. And that's going to be our G dominant chord, right? So we're starting with the D minor 7, then going to our G dominant chord by bringing those 2 notes down. And now we're going to go to our C major 7 chord. So now we're going to keep the G and we're going to keep the B. We're going to hold those. We're going to keep those down. We don't need to move them. And then all we're going to do is bring our middle finger down to E and our pinky down to C and play C, E, G, B. Right, so we were just here on D, F, G, B. Now we just want to go to C, E, G, B. And that's it. So it's a 3 chord progression. So here, D minor 7, G dominant 7, C major 7. And that's the chord progression. And if we want to think in terms of a tempo, how we're going to play that, we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I would recommend pausing this video and maybe spending a few minutes actually just working on that progression and making sure you can play it fairly easily. It might take 5 or 10 minutes to do this. If you're an absolute beginner, it might even take longer than that to do a 4-note chord, but you will get it down. Once you can get it down, right, we'll jump into the melody. All right, so hopefully by now, right, you're pretty comfortable doing this progression here in our left hand. And now we're going to talk about the right hand. So as for the melody, there's no rules. Something you have to remember with music is there's no rules. There's no such thing as a right note and a wrong note. There's good choices, better choices, worse choices, whatever it may be. It's very subjective, right? It's music. But, there are some ways to learn about it and be a little more simple about it. I think if you just try and jump in and go into all trying to do crazy stuff, you may, lose the concept of, building a melody and things like that. So the easiest way to think about it and what notes to choose, you do want to use notes that are generally part of the scale, right? So notes of the C major scale will definitely help in this because we're in the key of C. We're doing a 2-5-1 chord progression in the key of C. So any notes in the C major scale will generally work. Right? So that's, the C major scale. However, there's notes that will sound not so great, if you play them. So for example, when we're playing the C major 7 chord, the 4th in the scale F has an interesting sound to it when you play it. So, even though you can't just use every note in the scale, each one's going to have a different effect which one you use, right? So for example, right, if we're playing our D minor 7 chord, let's think about the notes that we know for sure are going to work, right? Let's talk about these notes. We know for a guaranteed fact they're going to sound good if we play them. So the most obvious ones are going to be D, F, A, and C. If you just use those notes, right, those are going to work, right? And you can switch up the order. You don't have to play it in order. For example, you could do I'm still just using only notes of the chord. So that is the easiest way to think about what notes to choose, right? So think, okay, if I'm playing a D minor 7 chord, I can use D, F, A, or C in the melody. Now, there are other notes you can use. For example, I could do, right? I'm using E and G, right? Now I'm adding in a 9th and an 11th, you know. I don't want to jump into that in this lesson. So for now, if you're absolutely new to improvising, I would say focus on just using notes that are part of the chord and try and make it interesting. Right? And then when you switch to your G7 chord, right, now our possible notes are D, F, G, B, right? So I just played those chords in order. And then when you go to your C major 7 chord, right, you can use C, E, G, or B. So watch how nice I can make a melody actually by just using, right, using the notes of the chords. So there I started using other notes, so I'm going to stop there, right? So now I'm going to go a little bit slower now, and let's make it a little more simple. Right? So even this, yes, it is not, an Art Tatum level, improvisation, or a Bill Evans, some of the best in the world, to ever live, but this is where you have to start out, is keeping it simple, because what this actually does is you become very familiar with the notes of each chord. And not only that, you start to hear what each interval sounds like, So for example, when you use the note E, when you're playing a C major 7 chord, this is the third of the chord. So you're hearing, oh, that's what it sounds like when a third is in the melody. Oh, that's what a 7th sounds like. That's what a 5th sounds like. That's what a C sounds like. So I'm not going to jump into it today, right? But obviously a very important part of improvisation is being able to hear it in your head. What is it going to sound like when you go to that note? Right? Now, it takes time to get used to that, to hearing these things, but improvisation is a mix of all these things. So for now, like I said, if you're an absolute beginner, what I would recommend is just starting with this progression, getting comfortable playing it, right? Don't cheat yourself on that. Get comfortable playing it so that you can focus on your right hand and your left hand just kind of works on its own. All right, so that is all for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. So thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already. I cover every topic there is at the piano. And be sure to check out the description of this video. There's lots of links in there to some great free stuff. I offer a free private lesson for anyone who wants one. I have group classes, which you get to learn and study with people all around the world. And, it's a really incredible thing. And those, you get 4 free classes with that. So your first 4 weeks of classes are totally free. There's no obligation to continue if you don't want to, but check it out. So make sure to check the description, subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.